Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us for what promises to be a very interesting session today. A fireside chat with a veteran of the industry, Mr. KB Kachru. And his role in the industry has been multifarious. I mean, he's been associated in terms of various industry associations, advising the governments, the state governments, central governments in various ways. And on various, he's also been instrumental in setting up education programs, working with Oxford Brookes University. And he started his career with ITDC. So he's had a multifarious career. Mr. Kachru, may I please request you to join us?
Hi, Vijay.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much for taking the time to join us and to share your experiences and views. It's something that I value a lot, and I'm sure a lot in the industry will value. So, welcome. Mr. Kachru, I'm going to go straight to the subjects. You know, your interpersonal skills, relationships, diplomacy are well known. I think you would have been very successful in the Indian Foreign Service. What took you to do hoteling, to the hotel sector?
Vijay, first of all, let me thank you for inviting me, and I must apologize when you told me first time to come in, and COVID kept us away, but I'm glad I'm here. Referring to what you asked me, I actually didn't know much of what I wanted to do in my life. I must tell you, I mean, there was not really something which I had pre-planned to join the hospitality trade as such. I am a middle-class guy with humble beginnings, and my father was in services. And as those days, most of the parents wanted their children to be doctors or engineers. And I think that's how it started. They wanted me to be a doctor. I did my pre-medical as well. And but I just didn't feel very comfortable with what I was doing, dissecting earthworms and frogs. I actually didn't really care much, and it just happened by accident. I had come to see my sister in Delhi, and I was traveling by a DTC bus. I saw a board hoarding which had hotel management written on it. I said, it seems interesting. I'm from Kashmir, and Kashmir is known for hospitality, and let me see what I can do. So I read the address there and went to the institute. It was a fancy looking new building, and the people had just moved in. So I was very impressed with what was happening. I applied, and I was lucky to actually get in, and that's how I joined hotel management as such. But then, moving on, everybody has a vision, and I started liking the profession, and I got good opportunities, and that's how I came into the hotel business.
That's so fantastic that it happened by chance, and you were so open enough to admit that it's just something that happened out of a sight from a DTC bus. It's literally looking out of a window of a DTC bus. I mean, that's amazing. That's an amazing story.
And Vijay, if you, what really pulled me is when I was a kid, my father used to take me out. He was a broadcaster, and he was known person. And whenever I went with him, people used to look after him. And, I used to get to eat good pastries and stuff like that. And I felt, there's a little bit of glamour in this. And so when I look back, and I somehow got a feeling, yeah, maybe this is what I want to do.
Sure. So that was some element of hospitality that was ingrained in you, and I guess you learned as a user first what hospitality had to provide. So that's amazing. And starting from there, I have to. I would have actually asked this question first or made this statement first, but I had to ask you about your past. I do want to congratulate you and your team, the entire Radisson team in India, for the century that you guys achieved a few weeks ago. You were the person who was there with the first hotel. You're there when the 100th hotel has come about. That's no mean achievement. Congratulations, and wish you continued success to you and the entire team, Zubin and the whole team. So best of luck with that. But tell me, when you started, Radisson was not known in India, and you never had a prototype to show. How did you manage the growth?
Again, you sometimes you have to take challenges as opportunities. And when I quit ITDC, I joined Radisson in Singapore. I was looking after the whole region at that time, and we worked together to build our brands in Asia Pacific. Now, our brands at that time were relatively unknown. I mean, we were very strong in the United States, and we had just moved into Europe. But Asia Pacific, there was really none, if I may say so. So I think it was a big challenge. Where I think I got lucky was we managed to onboard great people from the very start, and people who are carrying on now, like Zubin. I mean, they're making things happen. And what I like about our team is they have been able to balance compassion with a really thoughtful decision making. That's what is important. You have to draw a balance, and India is relatively still focused on relationships. It's focused on how you do hand holding and things like that. I think these were some of the things which I saw an opportunity into it, and no major chain at that time felt that something can be done to non-metro towns, suburban areas, tier 2, tier 3 cities. So it was a great opportunity because state capitals, I mean, there was practically no state capital where you had international branding. So I thought, hey, this is where we need to focus. And some of the people actually laughed at me when I signed up hotels in smaller towns, and they said, what's he doing? But I looked at it both ways. I actually felt, how do I create brand awareness for getting customers out of that location to our other hotels, whether they are in India or internationally. And at the same time, we will grow state by state. I mean, we had no hotel, for example, in Punjab. We will have 14 hotels in Punjab now. I mean, we had no hotel in Delhi. We signed our first hotel in Delhi. We have 24 operating hotels in Delhi now, just NCR. Who would have imagined at that time? So I think it's the team. I give credit to our team. We started very small. We started 3 people, started Radisson set up here. And we now have a reasonably good sized team, and it's being led very well by Zubin. And I think our core goals haven't changed. We are focusing on the values we had, which really brought us to this level. So I mean, I try to put it together.
No, I think that's, I was going to ask you a question differently, but you've already partially answered that. That what were the key elements that drove that success and that helped you to nurture the company? And I think what you've said is very clear. It was a vision to go into multiple markets where there weren't hotels, there weren't quality hotels, and keeping the values in place. I think that is really, really very, very telling for a time when international hotels or the standards of hoteliering in India were a little bit different. The spread of hotels were a little bit different. I think you guys recognize the importance of F&B to a reasonably good extent, and I think that again helped you in your development story. But one thing about the Radisson growth, you had many brands, and for some of the brands you grew through master licenses and master franchises, and then of course you brought some of them back in, whether it was country inns or whether it was the Park Plazas, Park Inns. You brought that together. So what was the thinking behind first the master franchising and then the consolidation?
To be fair, when we started here, our budgets were limited. We couldn't be everywhere and do everything. So we actually selected our partners. Some of the partners had the same vision and they wanted to grow. We banked upon their infrastructure, their ability to put things together. And I think we were lucky. We actually got great partners to start with, and who worked with us, and we established certain brands together. Look at Park Plaza with Sarovar. They've done a fantastic job. Besides developing their own brand, they have developed the brand at that stage, because we felt Anil and Ajay were very strong partners. We had country inns, we had Ranjan, and we started very well. But a stage came when we wanted to consolidate and increase. We saw India is a huge country with absolutely non-matching. Actually, if I'm looking for a word, which I mean, it is so big that you can double your size every 3 to 5 years. I mean, that's the kind of potential India has. So we felt that we must have our own setup, and with stakeholders changing hand, as you know, we started as Radisson International, then it was Carlson, then Carlson Residor, then HNA, and now Xinjiang. So we have had multiple changes. But one thing good has been that each one of them felt India is a good market. We need to be focused in India, and we need to support India. And all of them have been supporting India, and that's why you see that we have 100 operating hotels. We have over 164 hotels, including our pipeline, and we are actually bringing in our new brands. I mean, we are starting Mohali, which is the first lifestyle brand in our group, opening in Mohali. I mean, it's fantastic. It's hotel with an attitude. So we are experimenting. We are going to newer places. Who would have thought to go to Mohali and do a lifestyle hotel there? Who would have thought to start a country inn in Katra? Who would have thought that we would have 24 hotels in Delhi operating at the moment? We may have ultimately 40 hotels here. So we went state by state. And I must say, maybe it had something to do with working with the government in the past. I felt we need to work very closely with the government, each state government. and have a correct balance between the federal and state governments and work together. Because in India, as you are aware, 60% of the licenses are issued by the state and the rest by federal. So you have to keep on balancing. So that did help. And we did a lot of hand holding for people to get their licenses, actually help them structure their funding. And even if it was a small hotel, we took it as a prestige for us, and we gave them the same importance we'll give it to owner of a large hotel at that time. And it's they who have built us up. And I give a lot of credit to our owners who had faith in us to make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, you gave respect to the owners. The owners gave enormous respect back to you, and I think that's an important element of the growth. You mentioned something very interesting about the India opportunity, the need to work together. Uh, you were at ITDC, and
Yeah.
you were probably, if not the singular youngest, but I would probably think you were the youngest among the ITDC executives to reach the lead position in that organization. And yet you gave it up to move to a private sector. What sort of enthused you to do that?
There are various reasons, and some I would be happy to share, and some may get
Obviously,
into.
what you can. Obviously, what you
Yeah,
can.
yeah. When I was in my late 30s, I achieved that position, which I could. I am not an IS or IFS, as you said, diplomacy. I am not. So I thought, how long? I may be here for another 5 years, but I both stop contributing, and I will not be able to make a difference because government has certain restrictions, and we have to respect them. In terms of the growth priorities. I mean, if they need to focus on agriculture, they'll focus on agriculture rather than creating more five-star hotels. So, and that's what is the need of the country. So I, at that stage, felt I don't have much future left. I wanted, on a personal basis, wanted to give a better life to my family, and as any parent would want, they wanted their kids to study in the best of schools. And as you know, in government, you don't get paid very well. You have lots of perks, lots and lots of perks, but you don't get paid very well. So this job was actually offered to me when I was in ITDC much earlier. And at that time, in my enthusiasm of only focusing on the PAR chief of ITDC, which was actually at that time very growing, and we had great hotels, didn't want to leave. Governments changed, and we got a little bit of interference from the political body and you know connected bureaucracy. So I felt that it's not my age to really follow that path and manage such situation. I better look at my career and see. So I called the then chief executive of Radisson International. There was a gentleman called Jorgen Bartels. I don't know if you know him. He used to be CEO of Sheraton, Starwood. So I called him. I said, JB, you had offered me a job once. So I had declined. So is it still open? So he said, are you sure you want to leave? I said, yes, I feel it's time that I should. I was 38 or 39. I said, yeah, I want to leave. I have many years ahead of me, and I want to do something creative. He said, if you want to do something creative, give me a couple of hours. So and go to sleep. It was late night in India. So I said okay, but he called me in 2 hours. He says, KB, you're on, but we'll talk about specifics next morning. So next morning, I actually called my secretary and dictated my resignation to him and went to the Secretary Tourism, Mr. Behel, and I said, I want to quit at that time. So everybody in my organization, as well as in the government, were shocked as to what has happened overnight, and it just was a matter of 24 hours. So that's how I quit ITDC. Otherwise, I was very happy. Most of my tenure, I got India's largest hotel to manage a Ashok hotel when I was 28. So I couldn't have expected more. And they had faith in me to give me my first general manager's job when I was 22. So
wow.
I was very satisfied, and I'm still very grateful to the training ITDC has given, not only to me, Vijay. You have many chief executives of many companies, national and international, who are CEOs now, and they are doing a wonderful job. The training is ITDC, so I think we have to give a lot of credit to ITDC.
Yeah, you have to give a lot of credit to the organization and the way it owns you sometimes. But I think in your case it was a matter of fate. If the first fate was the DTC bus in the window from the DTC bus, this was a different fate. I mean that's really fantastic. But you know what? In a sense, the fate has stayed with you because even today, Radisson is ultimately owned by state-owned enterprises. Because Jinjiang Holdings is ultimately owned by state-owned enterprises. So maybe, your continuity with Radisson, and maybe you will go to Jinjiang hotels to tell them how to deal with governments.
No, I think we are lucky. Our RSG is very professionally managed, and we have great leadership both at Asia Pacific level and global level. And I mean, can you imagine? I have not met any stakeholder as yet. So we are professionally dealing with it. We are answerable for all the right things or wrong things, and accountability lies with us.
Yeah, and that's the way it should be, I guess, as a professional organization and for the growth of business. So you talked about ITDC and the trainings and the learnings. Let's talk about a couple of items or whatever you feel is relevant of your learnings in ITDC that can be carried forward to the private sector that is relevant for the industry today.
Things have changed. The market dynamics have changed. I feel what was very important at that time may not be as important today. I think
but the core of what you learned there might still remain important.
I think what ITDC actually taught us, my initial years, that you must have absolute clarity of mind what you want to do as an individual first of all, and which I think gets developed over the years. But I think what ITDC taught was how to manage people. You may be aware that it was a highly unionized organization with political backings, and I remember a hotel which had where we had about 52 unions in the hotel. But what really is important is how you manage. You have to feel the pain of others, whether it's your staff, your stakeholders, call them owners, or your various stakeholders in your business. Put yourself in their place. I think that's what ITDC taught me. If somebody came to complain as a customer, his pain was different. A staff member, his pain was different. And I have realized it over the years that in any management, it's not only hotel management, in any management, if you actually put yourself in their shoes and then take a decision, 99% you will never go wrong. You will never go wrong. So I think then, dealing with the decision makers the right way, and you, everybody talks about guest is God. But I feel in addition to that, I think you have to see what are his real expectations uh, at all levels, at all points of service. That's that's important. So you only don't have to meet the expectations. You have to exceed. I mean, government was not known for actually be very innovative, but I must say we had a setup. I mean, my chairman at that time, Rajan Jetli, and we worked together. I mean, we were able with a good team to start 5 food and beverage outlets in the same unit and started the same day.
Wow.
One day, and they were rage. They were absolute success. And uh, the team, again, I'm coming back to it, the team which managed those restaurants are today managing hundreds of restaurants, if not more.
Sure, sure, sure. Yeah, so I mean, there is no doubt that the whole people management skill is very relevant when you're working in the government. And I would imagine also the fact that ITDC had presence across the country, in parts of the country where almost no other chain was present. And that breadth would have given you a vision or a sense of understanding of different operating requirements in the country or operating attitudes in the country, which would have held you in good stead as you expanded Radisson, or even just generally held you in great stead.
Absolutely, and you have to learn to work within the framework. You see, in government, you must know your limitations.
Yes.
And if you extend yourself somewhere which is not, you cannot give enough justification for that, you're gone. So so you learn to work within your means, within the framework of rules, and you must set things in such an order that you lead it from the front. You cannot expect others to do what you are hesitant to do yourself. So I think it's not the private sector. You have some great examples, fantastic growth, fantastic examples. But at that age, that era, I think the exposure which I got at that time was very meaningful, and it's coming very handy to me even at this stage of my life.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Let's go back into a little bit of the current environment and the way forward. I know Radisson is doing a fair bit of franchising in India. How effective do you think that is? Do you think we are ready for franchising in India? What are the issues you're seeing? How are you managing those issues?
Very good question. I think as a brand, our first preference is to manage, and as it would be for any company. But sometimes you have some third-party operators who are really good, and they have the right credentials. And if we have to look at growth, we have to do a very fine balancing. Having said that, I don't think any brand should ever take any hotel on franchising if they can't adhere to the standards of specifications and service norms, because it's the signage outside the building which really defines you. So As long as you don't compromise on that, selectively, we will also do franchising, but very selectively. I mean, I must tell you, a lot of owners have started seeing value now in management, and I must give credit to our operational team. We have converted 3 or 4 of our franchised hotels on renewal into management agreements. I mean, normally things happen the other way around. In our
Yeah.
case, it has happened franchising to management because they saw the value which our team has been able to create in holding their hand and giving them a better ROI.
And is that from the operations side, not just from the marketing side, I assume, because that would still come in through the franchising aspect. So you're
Yes.
saying that on the operations side, that has been more effective.
Yes. And no, you see, as far as from the distribution and all, it's the same to a franchising unit and a management unit, because you're selling your brand. So that will stay there. And I mean, there would always be a mixed bag.
Sure, sure. Do you see a lot of future in third-party operations, third-party operators? Sort of, how do you see that evolving and becoming more effective in delivering value? What would you look for? What should they be doing right or different from what they're doing?
You know, there are, as I said earlier, there are established third-party operators internationally and nationally. Nationally, we have very limited, very, very limited. But internationally, yes, there are third-party operators. I think, as I said earlier, as long as they own up the brand and brand owns them up, things become much easier. And if they don't cut corners in at the cost of standards, it should be not a problem.
Okay. But then when it comes to standards, how much of flexibility are the owners looking for? Yes, I think owners will look for a lot of flexibility, but how much of flexibility is real and how much of flexibility is unreal, in the sense that unreal expectations?
It really varies. There's an old school of thought, and there is the new generation. New generation is looking at things very differently, and I really respect that. I have dealt with the fathers, and now their kids have come in the business. Kids want to actually be more organized, more absolutely structured. They want to grow, they want to diversify properly. Maybe 25 years back when I started here, I think if I'm not misunderstood, it used to be ROE rather than ROI. I mean, we had many HNIs who
Oh
used to
yes,
build
no doubt.
hotels, and everybody wanted only to build 5-star hotels, and whether the market was there or not. And we used to tell them, well, if you build a hotel in place X, I don't think your investment is justified, and you will not get that kind of average rate what you are spending per room. He said, hotel मैं बना रहा हूँ कि आप बना रहे हैं, पैसे मैं खर्च रहा हूँ कि you are signing the check. So that culture has moved away.
Yes.
The younger lot is, I mean, I don't know. I really appreciate the progress in thinking, and business is looked as business. It's no more return on ego. It's more on return on investment.
And there is no emotion in that sense. So they will bring in more professionalism, they will bring in efficiency, but they will not tolerate brand standards because somebody says they're brand standards. If they're not giving me value, they will question.
Yes, they will question. They will keep on questioning, and I think it's our job of professionals and who are actually developing hotels, we have to convince them why a particular standard is required or a particular specification of towel is required. What value does it bring to them? Some are tangible, some are not tangible. So, but I think it's a continuous process. But gone are the days when we could just dictate to them that this is what it is, and either you take it or leave it. I think both parties want to grow now. We want to be reasonable. We want to be flexible, but not at the cost of the basics. I think that is the mantra.
Yeah, and I guess the question is those who hold on to that and do not let the basics suffer will gain in the long run. Those who are letting the basics slide will gain in the short term, but probably possibly hurt themselves in the long run. And you know, this sort of brings up the whole subject of the pandemic, the lessons from the pandemic, and the reactions to the pandemic. And yes, there have been a lot of reactions from the pandemic saying, oh, the whole relationship is undergoing a catharsis or a major change. I'm not so sure. It might be a shorter term thing. It might be that certain changes have had to be made for the shorter term. What is your view? How much of change is necessary and how much of change is expected, but it's temporary or too much?
Vijay, some of the changes which have come about with the change of market dynamics will stay, and some are absolutely temporary. I feel cutting corners for the sake of cutting corners and having a short-term gain will cost operators and owners a lot in the long run. But but at the same time, we have to survive. If you don't survive, how can you revive yourself? Everything is gone. Yeah, everything is gone. If you don't survive, so that balancing act is not easy. It's really not easy. But we're talking about a lot of things which are touchless, and we are stretching it beyond a point. I think that will not be permanent. Yes, to some extent, we have to be careful about it. But I think, and I hope that in about next 12 months or so, we will come back to where we were.
So you don't think that the attitudes, let's say some of the practices even in the States, where housekeeping is becoming optional or less frequent, room service is dead. Do you see that ever having a footing in India?
My personal opinion, but only time will tell. And I hope we don't get this third wave. And I hope we are done and over with all this now, and things will normalize soon. But I feel it'll not live for long, that you don't want to provide housekeeping every day, and you don't want to provide room service and go and pick up your stuff from the kiosk in the lobby. I don't think it'll work, at least in Asia. I mean, I'm talking about Asia. I'm not only talking about India. I'm talking about it's Sri Lanka. You are talking about Thailand, and it's not going to work.
I think you're right. I mean, those extremes are at least not for our market. In terms of the industry, at a more macro level, and we'll stay with India for the moment, what do you see the biggest challenges and what do you see the biggest opportunities?
I think COVID has taught us and probably given us lot more challenges than we already had. And whether it was reduced capacity selling, or whether it was total international flights stopped, and international tourism has come to absolutely to ground zero at one time. MICE has been affected a lot, and it will it'll remain for some time. I don't think MICE to come to pre-COVID level before 23. This is my feeling, but I hope I'm proven wrong. But this is what I feel. I think there are a couple of things. One is which we have to manage, like deal with rising costs and drop in ADRs, or pushing for, as you correctly said, how much is enough for COVID safety protocols. Those things will remain. But at the governmental level, I think if we have to actually survive, a lot more has to be done in terms of policy making and actually executing those policies. We have been asking, if I put on my Hotel Association cap, I think both FHRI, we, Faith, everybody has been saying, why aren't we an industry? We, not many people are aware, even at the parliament level, the justification why we are not, if an auto industry, a manufacturing industry, or any other thing you say, they are given industry status, and industry status gets you certain benefits, whether it is lower interest rates, you have lower power tariffs, you have less taxation. So those things, we're not asking for doles that you give us money and we want to give us subsidy, like many other countries. I'm sure Vijay, you are aware that most of the European countries have actually subsidized salaries of their staff for the entire period to the extent of 80%, including some of the countries in Asia, whether it's Singapore or Thailand. We're not asking for it. We realize India has different priorities. We need to cooperate with the decision makers, and we understand the situation, but at least make some changes in the policy which will make hospitality first survive, then revive, before we can even think of thriving. So that's not happening now. On a lighter note,
Mr. Kachru, one question.
Yeah.
And I don't mean this in any in any odd sense, so please excuse me if it sounds that way. We've made a lot of attempts in the past, and I do know that one feedback I had got in the past was that earlier we used to ask only for tax reliefs, and I'm talking about 5, 7, maybe 8 years ago, that always the approach was asking for tax reliefs, and that's not there anymore. But what is it that we need to do differently for the government to start recognizing us and to recognizing our genuine needs? Why is it that the efforts till now, seriously made, have not borne fruit?
I know we've been talking about it, and we used to go every year, whosoever was in that position, with a list of demands, and they were just being filed, as far as I know.
If at all, I'm not even sure they were not finding the way into a bin.
Yeah. So they were, I'm putting it in a little more respectable manner. So now, they were filed, but we as a body decided that we will have just 3 or 4 things where we want to tell government. And the motivator has been actually Prime Minister himself. I don't know if you would remember during his speech 2 years back at Red Fort on Independence Day, he said tourism is going to be one of the 5 pillars of economy. So we're
Yeah,
saying,
about 5 or 6 years ago. Yeah.
yeah. So if tourism is one of the pillars of the economy, what needs to be done? I think as different industry bodies, we have to explain what needs to be done rather than go all over. So for last year and a half, we are focusing only on policy making, and it's not that things haven't happened. A lot of things have happened. A lot of things have happened, but they have happened on ad hoc, piecemeal basis because tourism, unfortunately, is not on the concurrent list. Because there are certain things which are dealt by Government of India, and there are certain things different states will deal with it. States have to give it industry status. So now there are 6 or 7 states, including UP, Orissa, Jharkhand, Jammu and Kashmir, which have actually declared, Punjab, which have declared, I may have left 1 or 2 ones, which have declared Maharashtra, the big one actually, which have said that tourism is an industry. But what has happened, it is the advantage is given, or whatever is connected with industry given selectively. Maharashtra was, in fact, the first state, I must compliment them. They were the first state which actually said, we will give a relief on property tax for that period. We will give you X or Y benefit for a specified period. But what we are saying, please don't make it ad hoc. If you want this industry to survive, so the states which have declared it as an industry, we are telling them to execute. We are telling them you have already decided. So why don't you actually, at the shop floor level, get it executed properly? Central government, we are following it up with all concerned, including parliamentarians. In fact, we in HAI have met 3 delegations of member of parliaments headed by different chairmen who are actually looking into the subject. We have a tourism parliamentary committee. We have a Ministry of Home on disaster management and all. We have met them, our colleagues, everybody has met them. And now they have taken it to the parliament and they are discussing at that level. So coming back to it, as far as the parliament, the central government is concerned, they have to declare tourism as an infrastructure. If it is a pillar of economy, why don't you give it an infrastructure status? The moment you get infrastructure, you don't have to beg or ask for things. It is automatically happening. So these are the things, and we have had relatively good success, I must tell you, Vijay, in many states, whether it was power tariff, whether it was getting a relief on excise, on property tax for a certain amount of period. I mean, that's happening, and I'm happy to report that it's not going unheard of, and even the Department of Tourism is going out of the way now to actually make things happen.
That's so good. That's a very candid analysis from your side, and it's good news to see that things are moving. And I can only say, wish you Godspeed and your the HAI to get some of this done. HAI and other organizations. It's not just HAI, but all the other organizations. Godspeed to get this done for the industry, because we can give so much. But tell me one thing honestly. While we are looking for the government to change its policies, as an industry, either as owners, as operators, do we need to do something different from what we have been doing in the past to project ourselves better, to position ourselves better? in the sense, not just vis-a-vis the government, but the perceptions, what we give back maybe. Should we be doing something different, whether it's with the lenders or with investors? I know I'm sort of scattering the question around, but is there some onus on us as well?
Absolutely. I think the buck stops here. I think we in the industry, we have to know our own mind. I think the problem lies with the basics. In India, unfortunately, what has been happening in the last 25, 30 years particularly, are the way we fund projects, the way we actually look for different elements of what would make a good project balanced is the challenge. I mean, look at land, land value I'm talking about. Where in the world would you have 40 to 50% of the project cost going to the land? How will it make it viable? You have to make businesses viable. If you want growth, then you have to make money for your investors. If you don't make money for your investors, no business can actually survive. I mean, it's a short-term satisfaction that, my property is worth $200 million, $100 million. But the problem is, does it give you the bottom line, what that investment would do in any other segment of the industry, any other vertical? So unless we sort that out, nothing is going to happen. But the good news here is that in lot many two-tier and non-metro towns, land values are getting more and more rationalized and real. So that will make business sense for growth and people investing in our business. Otherwise, if you ask me that, would somebody invest money at this stage at the present value in Connaught Place or in Nariman Point, I mean, you would think 10 times unless you are creating a monument for yourself.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And it's the investment attitude, it's the obligation, but let's look at the obligation to the environment.
I want to come in here. I just want to tell you, you asked me a very good question on why are we dependent on the government? Why are we dependent on, we have been focused too much. One of the reasons is we want to make them aware what it can do to them and people of India. If our tourism industry is close to contributing 9% of GDP, and we are projecting in 2025, we would actually control between 12 to 13% of total employment in the country. Now, yes, if you don't look at, and only the policies can make it happen. It is not only an individual investor or a brand operator who can do it. It is, we have to collaboratively work and see, hey, here is a vertical which can give you 20% of employment by 2030. Why shouldn't we focus there? So that's why I am repeating myself for government involvement.
Honestly, is there a problem of too much of fragmentation of approach from our side as an industry? Fragmentation of approach or of asks, of expectations, or whatever.
It used to be there. I'll be honest. It used to be there till about a few years back. But I think now everybody is focused, including our Thai Travel Agents Association. You forget hospitality also. Everybody is talking the same language and the same ask.
So then that's good, because once that synthesis is there, then obviously it takes time to move a policy, but the synthesis is all moving or all efforts are moving in a synthesized manner towards that shift of policy. Let's come to climate. And it's just very the last few days it's been an issue. Earlier in this year there's been an issue. Last 4 or 5 years there's been an issue. Are we addressing the climate aspect in our development, in our operations? Are we being opportunistic about locations, irrespective of sustainability? How do we need to address that aspect?
I can talk what I know of what different brands are doing. I think they are doing a phenomenal job in terms of reducing carbon footprint. And there are chains, including RSG, who are contributing equally from their funds to promote that, because we have to have a sustainable world besides sustainable business. If the world won't remain, what business will we do? So I think there is, I would say in last 5-7 years, the awareness has increased. There is more involvement, and almost every single chain is focusing a lot on sustainable tourism and creating properties and operating them at a level where they address all environment issues.
But we still have hotels coming up now, whether they are chain managed, whether they are individually managed. We still have hotels coming up in locations, cutting corners, taking entitlements beyond limitations, or building right on the waterfronts, riverfronts, whatever, cutting the mountains to build hotels in an unauthorized manner. I'm not saying it should never be done, but in an uncontrolled manner, let's put it that way. Should we take responsibility for that as an industry?
Of course we should. I think we should be against it, and we should not let it happen. We can raise our voice, and I think each one of us, each brand, each company should have the courage to, even if they are impacted themselves, because I think we have a responsibility towards our society. We need to push it hard, and there should be people like you who should push and point out if anybody is going wrong at any place. I think you have, I can assure you on behalf of RSG, we'll do everything possible to promote that we take care of the environment.
Thank you, Mr. Kachru. We're coming to the end of our time, and I just look at my sheet of paper. The conversation has flowed into questions which are into topics that we had not even sort of thought of earlier, and I've got maybe half my discussion topics not covered, but maybe that means that we can have you back again at some point. So I'm going to end by asking you 2 questions. Tell us about 1 or 2 achievements that you're really proud of, that give you the most satisfaction. Let's forget proud. That have given you the most satisfaction.
What's the second question? Let me think about it more.
Okay. The other question is, what are your 3 key mantras for success?
In terms of what were my real beliefs, has been, I learned it from actually from Carlson companies when I started, and they actually instilled them so hard that you feel it's you, and you want to do it that way. I think personally, I believe in never giving up. I never give up, because even if it's a no somewhere, I feel there is a possibility of doing something. So that has been a reason for my self-motivation that even if there has been a deadlock somewhere, we have moved ahead of that. And I dream it all, and when you asked me earlier about my vision, I feel that I had thought that I have an opportunity here to create something, to feel good about bringing in a brand which is not in this part of the world, and leave a mark where we can have. And I feel really good about it. And third mantra, I already told you: feel the pain of others, be a good human being. And I think these are the issues which I believe in. With all humility, you must be humble. If you are not humble, it'll catch up with you someday. And in terms of my actually achievements, is one I think would be at a personal level. I am happy with my family, and the way I have held it together, one level up and one level down, with my parents and my kids and their kids, and we still stay in a joint family. And I have grandkids to play with, and I think it's a matter of great satisfaction that you can still, in these times, live like that. And
That's outstanding.
I think my second achievement is, after working for the government for so long, I at one stage, although I believed in myself, I didn't feel that it would be relatively possible to set up a company with 165 hotels and do it. So there is, with all humility, there is a sense of satisfaction that we could do it. And I give all the credit to my team, how we started and where we are today. Had it not been for them, I mean, they make us look good, they make me look good, but it's them who are working.
But it's you who are leading, Mr. Kachru. You mentioned earlier that there were 5 changes of ownership in your period, but you remained the opening batsman that's still carrying carrying his bat through, and I'm sure you'll carry your bat through the next 100 as well. Wish you all success. Wish you all happiness. Thank you so much for your time. God bless.
Thank you, Vijay. Thank you for having me, and thank you everybody who has been part of this. Thank you.
Thank you everybody I hope you found this session very interesting. Thank you for attending, and look forward to see you in November post Diwali. Happy New Year to everybody. Happy New Year by the Hindu calendar. Happy Diwali in advance, and wish you the best. Thank you.
Happy Diwali. Thank you.
Thank you.